So today we're going to go ahead and cut a deer. I'm going to show you the way that I do it. Again, I'm not doing this for speed. I want to make sure that I go through it kind of slow to show you exactly where the breaks are and everything. One of the things I like to do is I always like to start in the same place. I like the deer. I like to be able to pull the legs to me. So I'm going to pull this hind leg, then I'm going to pull the shoulder. I'm going to pull some of this plate meat, then I'm going to pull the back strap. I'm going to turn it and flip it, and then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to start, I always start with the back leg. So I'm going to start in this flank area. Find this little ball socket right here, you're going to see here. So I come in there and I pull that back. I always find that. That's going to be my first key to where I'm in the right spot. I take my knife and I'm pointing it in to the deer, because you're going to see here that this just angles back. So I don't want to point into this, because this is the actual sirloin. So I'm going to cut it. See how I angle right back in there, just like that right there. So now that I've got the hind leg removed, I'm going to come up here to that front shoulder. I'm going to do the same thing. Pull it down right there. Now this is kind of important here. I don't want to cut into this area. You're going to see, I'm going to show you the back strap. So the back strap's actually right here. Comes in there. Just want to make sure that I don't cut into that. If I was on a beef, that would actually be the ribeye. I'm going to take that front shoulder. That's how we remove the front shoulder. So I'm going to come back into this little flank area, cut that off. Now I got to be careful because I've got the tenderloin right here. So when I come in and cut that flank, I don't want to come into the back strap and I don't want to get into the tenderloin. So I'll come on this top side, clean a little bit of this up. Cut some of this meat off. Now with deer, I try not to put a lot of fat in it. It doesn't freeze well, and it's a little gamey. So try to remove as much of that as possible. But you know, there's some good trim through here that we can use for burger. Some of this neck meat, kind of peel it off. Again, I want to be careful not to get into the back strap. Flank off. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start with the back strap. I'm going to come in, be careful that I don't cut through into my tenderloin. So as I pull this back strap, I'm going to find it right there. Be real careful. Again, I'm keeping my knife and I'm pointed in because I don't want to cut into the back strap. See here, staying as tight into that as I can. Now I'm going to come back on this backbone, this spinal column. I've pulled the back strap. Now I like to peel this fat off. Again, I don't like to put a lot of fat in my trim. Some's okay, but just don't want to do a lot. There's my back strap. Now I'm going to pull the tenderloin out. So I'm going to pull this tenderloin right out of there. Don't want to damage these when you're gutting the deer. There's the tenderloin. Let's clean that up a little bit. Okay, that's one side. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this deer and I'm going to turn it. because I always like to start with the hind leg and I pull it back to me. So I'll take my weight, kind of push down here, start on that flank. Remember, I want to come in here and find that little ball socket. It's right there. And then gravity kind of helps me. And my knife is pointing into the backbone of the deer. Find that where it kind of angles up. That's where I know I'm in a good spot. There's the other hind leg. Clean this up on the top side. There's the other hind leg. Come in. Some of the flank out of there, but I'm going to pull this front leg. And you can see again, we don't want to get into that back strap, which is right here. There's the front leg. So I'd like to cut some of this blood off the top. Don't like to really get a lot of that in there at all. Pull some of this plate meat off. See, here's some good trim for burger. Pulling some of that neck meat out of there. It's always good for trim. Again, this is a good fat deer. So be a little careful pulling this. And I don't want a lot of fat in my grind. A little bit again is good. So now again, I'm going to pull this back strap out. Not getting into my tenderloin. You see here, I found that little bone. Remember that little angle that was down there on my sirloin? I'm going to come forward. Now on a beef, this would be the KC strip area. This is going to be the ribeye. So if I was cutting T-bones, you've got your porterhouses back here, then you got your T-bones, then your ribeyes. This back here is the top sirloin. That's also where you can see that bone just kind of angles up, and that's how I know I'm in that back strap area right there. Keep my bone pointed into those ribs and on that backbone. Don't want to get into my back strap, that loin area. Up into the neck. Might come in here and again put a little bit of this neck meat out of there. It's always good for grind. Can't forget the back side of this tenderloin here. It's always good. Clean that tenderloin up. It's got two tenderloins. And clean this back strap up. Again, I might take some of the meat, but I don't want to get much fat. I want to get a lot of fat in there. Just peel this right off the top. Probably use your knife to help you out a little bit. Back strap. It's a good back strap. Got some trim. Both front legs, then both hind legs. And I'll go back through this trim, kind of get some of the fat out of it and use it for burger. And it's really kind of your preference. Some of the, you might like a little bit of fat in there. I personally like to try to remove as much as I can. Now we're going to go into breaking down each one of these primals here. Tenderloins, back strap or the loins, the hind legs, the rounds, and then these are the shoulders. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how we cut the hind leg. We've got the inside round, which is right here, and we've got the sirloin tip, which is over here. One of the things I like to do is to find myself in a spot where I understand that this is the inside part of the deer. You can see here's the outside part of him. Inside, that's the inside round. The bottom round is under here. This sirloin tip is here. I start by pulling this sirloin tip off first, and I go down straight to the femur bone, and then I just come right down it, just like that right there. Go right to that ball socket, and then I make a cut out of there, just like that right there. They call this the peeled knuckle, football roast, whatever you want to call it. That top skin will just pull right off the top. Got to use your knife every once in a while. Now that can either make a really good roast. It's a nice lean roast, but that's the sirloin tip. Can also make great steaks. You can see here. Those are the sirloin tip steaks. Set those to the side. Now I'm going to come over and I'm going to work on the round, and I'm still working from the inside of this leg. So I'm going to cut this tendon off just like that right there. Now I'm going to pull it off by pulling the inside first and leaving the bottom round attached. I've done it both ways and I do it different ways, but to show you on the video, I want to pull this top round out and show you how we find that nice perfect top round steak. So what I do is I break it right there on that tendon. I'm going to come up. You can see this muscle right here. You see how that little, it's like a Pike's Peak roast. The heel of round is what that is called. I'm going to take this top right there. Now the bottom round has the eye of round that lays beside it. You're going to see that here. I don't want to get into that eye of round. I want to stay on the top side. That's my bottom round and my eye of round. I don't want to cut into that. I'm going to come around. And see that? I leave that eye of round on that bottom. I'll pull this inside, this top round right off of there. Now I've got my top round. I like to come in here. I like to clean mine up pretty good. Peel this little cap off the top side of it. Clean it up really good right there. Now I've got a really good lean top round. What this is good for, you can cut a steak out of it. It's like a top round steak, or what everybody's always asking for, you can slice some jerky. Really good lean jerky pieces out of that. Or nice top round steak. Alright, now back on this hind leg. So now I've got the heel of round, the eye, and the bottom. So I'm going to come and pull this right off the shank. So I kind of break that a little bit, and I'm going to lift this up. Come right underneath here. That's the shank. Now again, this is the top sirloin. So if you want to cut some top sirloin steaks, you can. Or you can cut it off and go straight into the round. But I'm going to go ahead and cut some top sirloins just to kind of show you. I'm going to break this off of here. That looks familiar. It's just a little top sirloin steak. It's got the picanha on the top, still got the, looks just like a top sirloin you'd buy in the store. A lot of people miss those. They just cruise right through them. It's a good steak. It's tender, cooks really well. There you go. It's a deer top sirloin. So now I've got the bottom round. In the beef world, this would be called the gooseneck. It's got the eye of round connected to the bottom round. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. I like to take this little silver skin off the side. There's a gland that rests in here. It's the bottom round, the eye of round, heel of round. There's a gland right here that I like to take out. You can see there, that gland. Make sure that I peel that out of there. Now I have a bottom round with the eye of round still connected. It's got a little bit of fat on the back side. You can do several things here. But no matter what you do, I always like to cut this off. I like to peel this fat off the back side of this. I always like to start by trimming that up. You can cut round steaks out of it, or in this case, we're going to pull this eye of round off of here. There's an eye of round, and there's a little piece of trim in here that I like to pull out. You can kind of see it. It goes right there. Set this here. You're going to see what I do in just a second. Now, I'm going to come in and cut jerky. You can really do it in however you prefer. If you want to go cross grain, if you want to go with the grain, make some good jerky out of that right there. Cut it into smaller pieces if you want. Just slice it real thin. But that bottom round cleaned up, it produces a lot of good jerky. Now the eye of round, can do the same thing. Come in here, and I like to go with the grain on this. Man, this makes some really good jerky right here. Some good jerky. Got a lot of good jerky meat off of that deer right there. So now we've got the tenderloins. I just personally like to just make sure that these things are just good and trimmed up. I like to cook mine whole. So I just leave them just like that right there. Now I'm going to start with my back straps. We're going to cut these. I like to trim any of this stuff off. You'll notice here it's got a little bit of skin on the back, and again, this is a preference thing. Some people like to cut all that off. I like to leave it on there because I'll show you why. I'm going to just square this up, but I like to butterfly my steaks, and then I use that little skin, kind of helps hold that together. That's a butterflied backstrap steak. Now if you want to pull that off, you just come in here and just take your knife and try not to get into your meat too much. Just going to peel that right off there. And again, this is a preference thing. I don't mind the silver skin because it holds my butterfly chops together. Cut a little bit of that off. Come over here and I can cut it without butterflying it. And I always love leaving a little bit of it in a tail On the beef, this would be close to where the ribeye was, so I always like to cook that thing whole. So we've got a little back strap, some steaks, some butterfly back strap. Got that hind leg, that shank, so always bone that out. It's definitely easier to turn this into burger than the front leg. That front shank's a little bit tougher to bone out. I don't like to get super close because you'll get some bone in there if you're not careful. That's about all I'll pull off of there. All right, so now we've got the infamous front leg, and I know a lot of guys are intimidated by these. Don't be. It's really simple. There's just a couple of things that you can do with it. My favorite thing to do with it is to just trim it out and put it to hamburger. I'm going to show you just really quick in this shoulder blade. I've got a bone that goes right here, and this is how I always start it. On this side of it, got this little tender, it's going to pull right off the side of that bone. My shoulder blade just kind of ends right there, so I just pull that out. I don't go deep, but I just cut that out of there. And then I'm going to take my knife on the other side of it. I'm going to make that cut right there into that shoulder blade where that socket is. Okay? If you find that right there, that's that shoulder blade, and the majority of that blade comes into the body, just cut that. That's the main thing. If you can find that, you're going to be doing good. So then what I like to do is I like to take it into the meaty side of that leg, and I just like to go right down that shoulder blade, just like this right here. Now for all you beef guys, this is the flat iron that I'm working on, the blade steak. You're going to see here that I'm just going to pull that right off that shoulder blade. It's right there. Now I've got that shoulder blade just about isolated. We'll come up underneath him now. And I'm just going to cut this blade right out of there. So again, I'm being real easy not to cut back into the meat of the deer. Just following that blade, shoulder blade. Now I'm going to cut that blade right out of there. See here? So you see where that shoulder blade ends, right there. Pull that out of there. Been good night. You got a church fan if you need it. Works pretty good. All right. So there you go. I found that bone. I pulled that blade out. Now on the meaty side of this leg, I'm just going to follow that bone right through there. You see that? Just peeled that out of there. I'm not going in. I'm just going the depth of that bone. So I'm not trying to cut into that arm, that shoulder. I'm just going to find that bone. Just going to peel that arm bone out of there. There we go. There's the front shank. What I've got is all that shoulder meat. Then I can come in here and really do anything I want. Cut a lot of this stuff off and use it for trim. Cut some of that damaged area out. Could use that as a roast. Tie it. Makes a really good arm roast. There is one gland in here. I always like to get it out. But see there, I always try to pull those glands out of there. use that as an arm roast. Okay, so that pretty much sums up the deer. Now we're going to come back into the trim. Something here again, everyone has a preference, and then everyone's got a different grinder. Some grinders are able to push a little bit more of that silver skin and that fat through there. Some people like a little bit of fat in there, some don't. I personally don't. So we try to remove as much deer fat as we can, trim up any of that damaged area and pull it out. So once you get all that done, you can just kind of come back through there and clean up anything you want to clean up. Create a little pile, run it through your grinder. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that video. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a bunch of more instructional videos fixing to come out. Hey, thanks guys.